All right, it's that time of year for a new major version of Laravel, in this case, Laravel 11. And anytime there's a new release, as the creator of Shift, I like to demo Laravel Shift. So let's go out to Shift and just kind of start at the beginning, and let's see how quick I can go through this. The application I always use is my testing course, Confident Laravel. It's a medium-sized application. It has a lot of different components, policies, events, jobs, commands. So I kind of like using it because while it's not necessarily a lot of files, it does have a lot of the Laravel components, so it gives me a good indication. It also has, as a testing course, a super strong testing suite. So while this is running, I'm just going to jump in the background here because this shift takes a little longer than some of the other ones. It takes, a minute or two, maybe more for a large application. So I'm just going to get back on my master branch here, and let's run artisan test. So again, master branch, this would be Laravel 10. This has a pretty good testing suite, like I said, and it's actually using Pest. In fact, this is kind of an older testing course. I'm looking to update it this year, I think later on this year if I have time. But the point is that not only does it have a pretty strong testing suite, of course, but it actually was converted to Pest v1, I think, as kind of a bonus video. At the time, Pest was pretty new to the scene, so I'm interested to see. Shift normally doesn't bump your testing dependencies, but I think v2 is going to be required for Laravel 11, so let's find out. Let's go back to, oh good, finished a second ago. Look at that, perfect timing. Okay, so I'm just going to go through this real quick. Again, as the creator of Shift, I built this, so I kind of know what this is. But let me just highlight a couple things. Of course, in real life, you would probably want to go through this a bit slower. You want to review the commits and so forth. But let me just give you an overview, and let's get back into the actual code and see if we can make sure that this, verify this upgrade with that testing suite. So one thing I want to point out, though, that I just love about this Shift, I'll point out a few things. Sorry, let me gush as the creator, but very senior dev Shift here. It's like 10 times the number of deletions versus additions. So I think that's awesome. But anyway, let's go check out this branch. Let's kind of follow these instructions for a second. So let's do a git fetch origin, git check out that, and I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit and go ahead in the background and run composer update. I know that's going to fail. I already know which package. If you've seen any of these videos before, you know that Vimeo package is not at all going to be ready for Laravel 11. So we're going to have to mess around with that here in a minute. But if you're not familiar with the Shift, it makes nice atomic commits. Everything's kind of well laid out here, real isolated. You can view any of these in isolation and kind of just quickly. The biggest thing in Laravel 11 is this slim application structure, and this is something Shift does do for you. It's a totally optional change, but again, Shift's goal is to make your application look like it was running, that version of Laravel, that latest version. In this case, it wants to make your application look like it's been running Laravel 11 always. And to do that, you need to slim your app. So Shift is going to go through all of your core files. It's going to look at them. If they're completely default, it's just going to remove them. If there's customizations, it's going to re-register them, is kind of what it's called, and you'll see that in all of these. And I'll bring up the code here in a second, but otherwise it does all the standard stuff that you would expect from Shift. The code conversions, bumping dependencies, kind of looking for all those deprecations, and any kind of modernization like type hints, and streamlining, setting new envs, stuff like that. So I kind of talked about the slimming here. I'm going to show the configuration files in code. The rest of this stuff, again, here's another thing I really like about this Shift. Again, because of all those configuration changes and slimming, Shift will actually sniff out your env or configuration options that can be set with an env where those differed either because you customize them or just a change between Laravel 10 and 11. So a lot of gotchas here, actually, if you're not kind of paying attention when you're upgrading by yourself, or honestly even with an older Shift. I hope to backport this over the next few weeks, but it is in Laravel 11 because so many new configuration options were added. And actually we see even new env variables, renamed env variables, you know, between the versions. So Shift is kind of picking that up and automating that for you. And then again, leaving these nice detailed comments on the PR. So I'm really just kind of looking through this for any, you know, kind of alarming or error bits. Everything else to me, of course, again, is pretty, I've seen this before, it's pretty standard, but again, very detailed comments, definitely go through these. So Shift's claiming that I have some custom route registry. I don't think that I do. I think, honestly, this course, this was probably originally a Laravel 5.8 application. So my guess is, just knowing my application and kind of knowing what this comment is telling me, I don't really have custom routes. I just probably have an older way in which I registered them. But if I did have custom routes, it's kind of telling me I can use the then callback or the using callback. And here's a link to the docs for more detail. Again, everything else is just informative. I'm kind of going through these pretty quick. Here's a good one. I can remove deval. I know I'm not using deval like for the code in my application. I'm just using it for these change migrations. So I think that's safe to go ahead and get rid of. Let me just tack on no scripts here because it looks like we did have a failure. Oh, okay. It's not going to let me do that because we're having issues. Okay, so I can already tell you right now, yep, I'm right. The Vimeo Laravel package, again, if you've seen these kind of demo videos before, you know that this package is just very, very slow to get their upgrades. So fortunately, as part of the bumping in the shift that we saw, I send automated PRs to all of these packages. So a lot of people merge them. Some people have already done it, but if not, there's a comment within this pull request. You know, hopefully it gets merged at some point. But until then, you can actually follow the details in this comment that Shift has left on this PR to actually use this forked version and see if it works in your code base. So it's a nice way not only to allow you to continue on with your upgrade, but to be able to test and help this package, you know, ensure compatibility. So let's bring this across. Oop, got a little copy savvy there. There we go. That should fix that. And then we also need to bump this. Actually, let's not copy the whole thing. Let's just copy that part. Whoops. We need to bump this. There it is. Vimeo. All right, cool. Now let's try composer update -w. You know what? I'm just going to manually remove doctrine deval there. Just save us a couple steps. All right, don't auto discover. I don't need that. Let's see if this goes. There may be one. Oh, hey, look at that. I thought there might be one or two more. Oh, there we go. It is actually going to bump pest from V1 to V2. I don't think there are that many changes, so this is probably going to be okay. But that's kind of what this comment is, you know, alluding me to. It's saying, hey, these were bumped major versions, so you might want to go check their own upgrade guide. I'm pretty sure pest has a pretty seamless one, and I was doing things pretty like idiomatically. So here we go. Let's just run artisan test. Okay, so we have an old okay, we got a warning here, but this looks to be maybe just a built-in option, and the configuration, that again, that makes sense from V1 to V2, so I can just run PHP units little migrate configuration, nothing to do. Hey, there we go, test suite pass. Look at that, everything passes. Everything passes. This is amazing. I kind of thought there would be a code change. Not the best demo from a code change perspective, but a very good demo from Shift's perspective. So just to go look at the kind of that re-registering, because I mentioned that before, and I want to demonstrate a config file, but this appears to be functioning. That's kind of surprising. This definitely is Laravel 11 because this new bootstrap file, I can tell. But anyway, the point here is that this is kind of where it re-registers everything. So instead of your route service provider and you know, your HTTP kernel, everything's kind of registered in Bootstrap now. And again, this is the new Laravel 11 way. This isn't required. If you're running a Laravel 10 application, you don't necessarily have to do this. But again, Shift will automate this for you. And so this is all working. You got rid of the handler and brought over this Sentry integration. That's kind of, I think that's their old way of doing it. But again, I can follow their upgrade guide in the notes here and get the newer way. I think they have a log driver. But anyway, this is it. Let's look at the config file real quick, but otherwise everything's passing. So if we get into app, you'll see that all I'm really doing here is I just need Redis. You'll notice that all of the other configuration inside of the app config was default or was leveraged through an environment variable. So Shift slimmed that for me. And this is really nice as you kind of go along things like mail and so forth. I don't have to carry all of that stuff. I just kind of have to carry the one driver that I'm using in my application. Sentry, of course, is a custom or a third party, so it doesn't necessarily have the same slimming services. Again, we have Mailgun and IP-base for my purchasing power. So you can see that these core files, even the configuration files, also got slimmed. And I just think that's a really great thing in Laravel 11, and that's something that I wanted to build into Shift. So I'm sure if I push these changes up, we'll see that the build starts to pass, but I'm going to leave it there. So there's the Laravel 11 Shift upgrading this medium-sized application to Laravel 11 in 8 minutes there. So there you go. Enjoy.